Hello, I'm Gil Zilkha. Welcome to my channel, Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the standard classical music repertoire. This video is taken out of my larger video on the great conductors and their best recordings. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so that is Furtwängler. Now, let's go to, who's coming next, the proverbial antithesis, Arturo Toscanini. So one thing I will say about Toscanini versus Furtwängler is, they were different in terms of their philosophy, mostly in terms of orchestral execution, I would say. Toscanini put a premium on that. He wanted exactness, like a drill sergeant, really. And Furtwängler, the thing about him is that he was mostly concerned with the free expression, and in many cases, spontaneous expression. He always said that he would leave a little bit more during rehearsal for the occasion of the performance itself, whereas Toscanini really, they even said that he had his best performances in rehearsal because everything was drilled so exactly. So it really is just more of a question of priority between them. They were both giants of the 20th century, arguably the two greatest conductors that we have record of, and both of them very passionate and dramatic. So they both brought to those qualities. I would say that Toscanini, his style tended to be more drilled and driven. He didn't like to dawdle. That was a big difference too. Furtwängler was more of philosophical and taking your time and meandering, and Toscanini was more go, go, go. So Toscanini tended to excel more in that kind of repertoire that lends itself to that. So in other words, especially for something that's urgently dramatic, and you get tons of that, of course, in the music of Verdi, which is where I think you should start when you're investigating Toscanini. He not only was Italian, but he knew Verdi, and the work that I think shows Toscanini at his greatest is Verdi's great Otello. This was recorded in the late 40s, fairly dry sound, as was typical of Toscanini studio recordings, but very clear, very present, even though it's in mono. And Toscanini actually played cello in the premiere of Otello, so he knew what Verdi wanted. He knew that Verdi was very meticulous about his markings and wanting conductors to really pay attention to them, and that was completely what Toscanini professed. So he gives you that, but above all, it's just this amazing, just dramatic intensity and incision and commitment and passion. The singers they just give it their all. Ramon Vinet, especially as Otello, and Giuseppe Valdengo as Iago. Just listen to their Si pel ciel duet that ends the second act. Just an iconic, one of the most iconic opera recordings ever made. That's where I would start with Toscanini. Now, he was also well known for his Beethoven. That is the area, of course, where people tended to pit him against Furtwängler. Again, the reality is they took different paths, but they both were giants in their own way. And I would start with Toscanini, just like with Furtwängler, first with the Eroica Symphony, which in Toscanini's hands, especially that first movement, it's just ferocious. It's just, he just grabs you by the throat and just shakes you around, and it's just, in terms of visceral excitement, I don't know another first movement that compares to that. It's recorded in 1939 with his NBC Symphony Orchestra. It was a live radio telecast. So it's dim sound, but it's fairly clear, and it's just really exciting. The second movement, Funeral March. It's very eloquent and sung, and again with Toscanini, you're always going to get that passion coming out. So that's a really strong performance. And then a symphony that maybe even more is tailored to Toscanini's style. The rhythmic energy, the driving forward, is this one, the Seventh Symphony. However, I would say that this particular recording with the New York Philharmonic from the mid-30s, it's not quite as hard-driven as his later studio recordings tended to be. This one gives it a little bit more room to breathe, and it's just a wonderful interpretation. The rhythmic energy throughout, it's just one of the iconic recordings of the Beethoven Seventh. Now, going back to his fellow countrymen, let's go to Respighi, the Roman Trilogy, in particular the Pines of Rome. This recording, again, it's a mono recording. We don't have any stereo recordings of Toscanini, but it's very passable mono. It's a little bit, again, on the dry side. Very exciting, just amazing virtuosity. That final movement of the Pines of Rome, the Appian Way, is just incredible. The other two, the Fountains of Rome and the Festo Roman, also really colorful and wonderfully done, real exciting. So again, repertoire that Toscanini knew backwards and forwards, and it's really a reference. And then finally, I want to mention a Toscanini recording that is a collaboration where he is an accompanist. But you talk about the meeting of two giants, especially with electricity running through their bodies. Vladimir Horowitz at the piano with Toscanini in the very famous 1943 Carnegie Hall performance of Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1. This is just scintillating energy from the word go, just real goosebump inducing, and famous for good reason. It's one of my go-to recordings when I mention to people that they should give a look to historic recordings, even though they're more primitive sounding, because you're not going to find electricity like this anywhere else. You're just not. And this is again like a meeting of two giants. The virtuosity of the NBC symphony accompanying Horowitz just going crazy on the piano. It's just wonderful stuff. Thanks for watching. I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.